Everybody to my left is a mortgage professional that we trust to handle all things REC Canada. We're gonna chat with them today, and we're actually gonna open it up to some Q&A in about 30 minutes or so for you to be able to ask your questions of them. But to get started, we're going to introduce everybody. To my direct left, this is Stephanie Yates. Stephanie Yates been in the business 13 years. She told me just a little while ago. She actually handles all of my portfolio, so we don't know if she's any good or bad, but just joking. So far, so good. It's going well for me. This gentleman, two down from me, is Chris D'Souza. Many REC insiders would know Chris from his work on their pre-construction properties. Everything from getting you a mortgage pre-approval 4 years in advance, and then working through what closing is for you as you then hit that 4-year period and your occupancy and your registration of those units way down the line. And last but not least is Don Scott. Don has been in the mortgage business for 30 plus years, whether it's at an individual brokerage, at one of the big 5 retail banks, or at his new venture, which I'm super impressed with. It's Frank Mortgage. It's an online platform that brings transparency to mortgage rates, availability, all of the things to you. Don, newer to the REC family, but guy's amazing. I think you're just going to take a lot away from him. Not that these two aren't amazing. I should have said that first, right? So thank you guys so much for being with us today. I wanted to start with this. The elephant in every investor room that we're in over the last year or so has been interest rates. So Steph, take it away. Tell me what you're seeing with interest rates right now, where you think you're going, how an investor can help to leverage interest rates for themselves.
It's a good question. I think the biggest takeaway that we've seen from this interest rate experience has been understanding the value of considering your product. We are seeing people who are a little bit more hesitant to refinance because the rates quite aren't where we want them to be. But all in all, we are starting to see the bond yields come down. The fixed rates are coming down. No movement yet on the variable, but we are hoping to see that soon. I think the cool thing is we're starting to see the market come back in spite of that, which has been lovely. At first, I think it was a bit of a shock value for a lot of people, but now we're getting confident again that rates are going to be headed in the direction that we want. And for those that experience something otherwise, it was a good chance to sort of lean on your mortgage professionals to see what other options that you may have.
Chris?
Well, it's interesting times, over the last 15 years, we've seen rates go up and down. I've seen it twice in my time. And in today's market, interest rates, especially for investors, interest rates is a tool in your toolbox. It's really to help you guide you through, if you have a holistic view of where you are today and where you need to be in the next 5, 7, 10 years, the rates are going to kind of direct you into what the appreciation of that property is that you've bought, the city that you've bought it in, how much you purchased it for. And in that 5 years, where do we see how much equity we can pull out of that property to help you purchase multiple properties moving forward? Other strategies along with it goes with whether you do a line of credit or, do you just get another refinance and get another mortgage. But there's a lot of, with rates, every bank has their own appetite, right? So the guidelines around people, investors saying that they want the highest rate or the best rate, yes, it's not just about the rate in today's market, it's where does the deal fit and how can you get approved? So if it's costing you an extra 1% or in terms of a rate increase or hike of 5.5 versus 6.5, the advantage around it still works out in the end based on the appreciation of that property. So if it's costing you $300 extra a month, and that's $3,600 for the year, you got to kind of look at it from a bird's eye to say, well, is that property going to appreciate more than $3,600 for the year? And 9 out of 10 times the answer is yes. So a lot of times on the pre-construction side, speaking of, the products that are out there allows you to borrow up to 75% of the new value. But that's not a lending guideline, guys. This is not an appetite for an A lender. It's strictly on the alternative lending side, but it allows you to grow your portfolio. Now, if you want to buy multiple doors, then we kind of expand on the different types of products, whether you're buying under a corporation, whether you're using the 75% loan to value, or if you're sticking with an A lender because it's your first or second property.
Thanks, my man. Thank you. Don, how about some perspective?
Yeah, so my perspective on this is maybe a little different, although I agree with everything that was just said. It's just my background isn't 30 years of being a mortgage broker. I was in banking for a long time, and I worked in bond trading floors. So, we bought mortgage portfolios and refinanced them and securitized them and that sort of thing. So we helped fund the lenders effectively. And so my perspective on rates is I'm a big believer in long-term trends. And we had a long-term bull market in bonds that had rates coming down for almost 40 years. So variable mortgages always seem to work in the long run, and that was the trend. That trend is over now. So what does that mean? Well, we had a very abnormal period of low rates, and now we had a spike in rates, and those are short-term sort of blips in the marketplace. Everybody's sort of anxious about that, I believe, and I think a lot of people are anticipating a rate decline. Let's get that going as quick as possible. We're already seeing, CIBC said rates will come down 1.5 points this year. Now they're saying 1.25 points, and it's not going to start happening in April. It's going to be June and July. We try to counsel people not to get too caught up in the absolute amount of a rate decline or exactly when it happens. We think what's important is the trend, and the trend is clearly now that the central banks have said we think we're done raising, and the trend will be down. So that changes sentiment a little bit. A lot of people see that and get more enthusiastic about the opportunities in the marketplace. But for me, being an old sort of bond guy, the issue in the market isn't that rates are here and we want them there. It's that the curve is inverted. So we've got short-term rates, T-bill rates. Mike's not good.
The good people of the internet have spoken.
Okay. I'll speak up too. So, the 1 month T-bill rate's about 4.90 and the 5-year rate is 3.68. So it's inverted. Short rates are higher than long rates. That's abnormal. It happens from time to time. It doesn't usually stick around for too long, but it's going to be 2 years this May if this inversion continues, which would be a record. The first thing I think that happens to rates is that we need that curve to get a positive slope again. So I don't think that 5-year rates are going to change all that much in that environment. They'll move around, say 25, 50 basis points, hopefully lower, not higher. Mm-hmm. But we might see 5-year rates sort of trade in that range for a period of time here. And what we'll see is instead of this inversion in the curve, maybe 5-year rates are like the fulcrum and the short end goes lower. And so that would mean rates would have to drop by at least 150 basis points on the short end, meaning the Bank of Canada has to cut by 150. Nobody knows when that's going to happen. One thing I learned in working on a bond trading market with interest rate derivative traders and bond traders is they have no idea where rates are going, and they're the experts. Mm-hmm. So, we can all speculate, but, predictions for interest rates are really difficult and we're usually wrong. But the curve does have to normalize eventually, and it's been a long time already. And if that happens, if you're getting into the market today and we get this normalization in the curve where now shorter fixed rates are lower than 5-year rates and the variable rates are much lower, that's a really good outcome for all of us. It's a much better rate environment. So, the contrarian in me always says, get into the market when other people are nervous and sort of, anxious about things and sitting on the sidelines because they're not sure. Because the truth is markets don't trade on the event. They trade on the anticipation of the event. So if you wait till the rates come down, you might be a little bit late. People are already getting back into the market because they see that the trend is their friend now. And when that happens, if you're booking a deal today in the current rate environment, it's a good deal and those rates do normalize and they're better, well, that good deal is now a great deal. So, that's what I look for in rates more than an absolute decline, is a normalization of the curve, which would lead to lower short rates and a better environment for everybody.
Did anybody understand anything? No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. That's incredible. Thank you, Don. You mentioned two things. So the first thing there, good deals in the marketplace right now. I want to segue out of this conversation for just a moment. I want to make sure that everybody sticks around until we're completely done today. We actually have a handful of income properties to showcase to you, showing you good deals today that are live on the market. And we're going to present a tool from REC Canada for all of our brunch listeners, watchers everywhere. Okay. But second, Don just mentioned something that I think that we're all sort of curious about, and it would be trends in mortgages as a whole. So I wanted to go through the panel once again. Chris, start us off this time with a trend or a product that you've seen recently, right, that you think can be of help or of hindrance to the investors at large.
Yeah. So as I mentioned, the 75% loan to value on the appraised on the new value on a new home, that's one. But I'm seeing now where lenders are now extending the amortization. So 40 years is a big stretch. to be able to get into the market, which is helpful. But the exit strategy when you're building that portfolio is to say, well, you get into the market at a higher price point in terms of with the 40-year amortization, but over time you change it over to and move on to the A side at that point. But 35 years and 40 years is becoming like the new norm, like it was back in 2005, 6, 7. That's what we had. Like 40 years was norm, 35 years was norm. So I'm thinking if we get back to the way that it was back then, we'll see a better progression on the different types of products.
How about yourself, Don? A trend that you're seeing?
Yeah, I agree with that. And it's again with the lenders in terms of just they're being more aggressive. You know, they were so passive last year. And, you know, some like Scotia, you know, I was even wondering if they were in the market at times. But they're more aggressive now. So like Chris mentioned on amortizations, there's a little more flexibility there. There's a little more flexibility on you know, TDS and GDS in the alt space on what's possible there. And, you know, I've been a little surprised lately with the A lenders on how aggressive they're being on rate. You know, so on their renewals, they're very aggressive on the renewals. They don't want to lose the renewal customers because of this big wave of refinancings and renewals that are coming in. And they're being aggressive on their offered rates too. So it pays to sort of, you know, push your broker a bit and make sure that they're looking around and shopping around to find the best solution, because the lenders are being a little more flexible on terms and rates right now.
How about yourself, Steph? What are you seeing?
I think one of the benefits of this interest rate fiasco has been a lot of lenders at the bottom level, like the underwriters, the BDMs, a lot of them are hungry. And so there's noise being made. And the response has been things like extended ratio programs where, you know, we used to have really hard stops at total debt servicing ratios. And now we're seeing that that's not the case. You know, when rates improve, will we continue to have that flexibility? I don't know. But if we do, there's a lot of value there. We've seen a lot of the bigger lenders really step up. They're understanding that there's not as much meat on the bone. And so they're creating new products like the 75 or 80% loan to value on a pre-construction condo, not on the purchase, but the actual value. I mean, that's such a phenomenal tool to use. I think it also creates space for really cool new products. Well, not so new, but things like reverse mortgages. They've got a stigma attached to them, but they really have an enormous value. And because there's less of a qualifying aspect to them, it's proven valuable countless times, at least for my book of business in the last couple of years, just kind of getting creative. I think the brokers, the banks, all of us now are, you know, we were fed well for a couple of years and now we've got to earn our keep again. And I think that's an incredibly valuable trend.
It's amazing. All I heard during that was opportunity to the investor to be able to get a little bit creative. And because we're firm believers at REC Canada that the best deal that you're ever going to do is the one that you create, right? Working with people of this creative nature are always going to help. I want to get to Q&A relatively quickly. I feel like that's probably the most important part of what we can do for everybody here today. But I don't want to go anywhere without everybody giving their most sage advice to investor clients, any client realistically in this particular market today. Don, what's your most sage advice to somebody working in the market today?
Well, for an investor in the market today, it's invest today. You know, I have always been a bit of a contrarian personally, and I like opportunities when others are nervous about a market. And if you look at long-term trends here, you know, the housing market in Canada over time goes up. You know, the house I lived in, I bought in 2001, and I was sure I top ticked the market. Nobody's going to pay this for this house ever again. And here I am today, it's worth 3 times what I paid for it. The long-term trend and the demographics and the supply issues are in the favor of the market right now. And normalization in interest rates will be as well. So a lot of people, while they sweat details and are concerned about where these two things go right now, will miss out on the opportunity. I think it's a good opportunity in the market today. I like the contrarian investor view to get in when others are getting out or not getting in. And we often wonder, why are there people out there that always seem to be able to make money? Well, it's because they buy when other people don't. And I think that's one of those opportunities right now, is to get in now before the event happens, before the rate cuts come, to you know, take advantage of, you know, the pricing that we see today and those long-term trends that are going to work in your favor.
How about yourself, Steph?
I think it's not so hyper specific to this market, but certainly in this market, my best advice is build your team. It is to get the team of realtors who will find you those opportunities, who will break it down into speak that is accessible, to work with the broker, the realtor, broker specifically. Chris and I were laughing about this earlier, date a bunch, marry one, do your research, find who you like, but then trust them, because building a portfolio isn't transactional. It's not one deal at a time. Really, if your goals are 3 or 4 or 5 properties, when we hear that, we set a different course. And we do our best to keep you accountable to that. We look for opportunity to make those things more lucrative or more comfortable. Ultimately, both the benefit or the consequence fall on you, because it's your money, it's your opportunity. But you really can vet a lot of that with the right team. And I think between the realtor and the broker, probably accountant, lawyer, you could throw a few more in there. But really, I think by far that's going to be the best advice I could give anybody, because that will survive you any market.
All right, Chris. You're the anchor here now. No pressure.
I'll tap on to
no pressure.
To Steph. I think aside from having the right team of experts, which I completely agree on, I preach it all the time. But I think it's more of being prepared. What is your risk tolerance when you're buying properties? Because we see people that cross our paths that want to get into the market, but they're just not ready, and that's okay, because real estate is really not for everyone. But preparing yourself and having the right tools in your toolbox is what's going to help you get to that point where you want to be able to buy multiple properties. Having the right team of experts is one of them, but being prepared in terms of knowing that you've got 3 months of repairs and vacancies set aside for in your bank account for every property that you own, right? So when times like this happen, because it will happen again, guys, could be another 10 years, could be another 14 years. For me specifically, closing happened in 2005. The interest rate at that time was 5.25%. 14 years later, the rate is now at 5.5%, right? So being able to go through those highs and lows and having the backup in terms of not just net worth, but in terms of savings for those properties, it'll help you survive through the process.
You three are amazing. How do you feel about these three, everybody? Maybe we give them a quick round of applause. Let's open the floor. Does anybody have any questions that they would like these three to tackle for them? I try never to be the smartest person in the room. Ask them, right? Please.
I would be so interested to know what drivers would have to be in place to keep the curve inverted, and what drivers should we be looking for to see the curve come back?
So let me just repeat the question for everybody at home. I think here was, what factors need to remain the same?
Yeah, what drivers?
What drivers will push the curve to stay the same? Or invert? Don, take it away.
Yeah, well,
I was so close. I was so close.
I'm not an economist, but the reason the curve inverts is because the view is that the risks in the short term are greater than the risks in the long term, and the risks in the short term are driven by inflation right now, and so that inflation number is everything to all investors in every market, and it's stubborn. Right now, it's been sticky. It's hanging in around 3.5%. The PPI number in the U.S. yesterday was higher than people expected. That's why people are pulling back on their rate predictions. Maybe they don't happen in April. Maybe they happen in June, July, or later in the year. So we need to see that inflation number come down. That's the number to pay attention to. And even the governor of the Bank of Canada has said he is not going to cut rates until he sees a consistent trend of decline in that rate. He doesn't need to get all the way to 2%, which is his target. He just needs to see that it's moving there consistently, and it's not right now. So that curve's staying inverted. And once that inflation number does start to come down, let's keep our fingers crossed that it does, we'll start to see that curve start to flatten a little bit, and then the Bank of Canada and others hopefully cutting rates, and we'll see it flip back to a positive slope. So inflation's the big number. The big risk from an inverted curve, though, is it often is followed by a recession, which nobody wants, but not always followed by a recession. So I'm not going to put a prediction on that, but it's the inflation number that really drives it.
Anything to add, Chris, Steph? Anything?
think he got it.
Right.
Nailed it. Now, it's because I asked the question so well that he nailed that answer.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Don't be shy. How about some Q&A? Please.
Just to confirm, I know typically the banks, the A lenders, have had only a 25-year amortization on rentals. That's what they capped at. So when you say that they're extending it to 35 to 40, is that for A lenders also? Is it like all across the board, A lenders, B lenders?
Yeah.
So sorry. So the question at home, right? If I get this right, because I'm horrible at this, right? Are A lenders also extending past 25-year AMs on rentals? Is effectively the question. Wonderful, Chris, take it away.
Yeah. So again, like a lot of lenders have their own appetite. There is a combination. Like a lot of lenders will go up to 30 years on rentals, but they have different rental offsets, which is what I mean by the different appetite. So some will extend the ratios. Some will actually go up to 50% rental offset. Some will go to 70% rental offset. Others have rental worksheets that we use to make the numbers work in your favor. But 30 years is something we do on an ongoing basis because it increases your borrowing power, right? When you can stretch it out. So we try and stay away from the 25 years with the lenders, which is what I was saying earlier, is where the deal fits. You may get a better rate on a 25-year because you're lowering the amortization, but in the long run, it'll negatively affect you because you're not going to be able to get into that next property because your monthly payment is higher on the 25-year than the 30.
Steph, Don, anything else?
I think another thing to add to that too, even if you do qualify with a 25-year and the rate is that much lower, I often encourage people to consider opting into the 30-year regardless and utilizing your prepayment.
Right.
Because if all of a sudden rates spike or your property you can still be aggressive and still pay down your mortgage 25 years or less if that's part of your priority.
Good point.
How about another question? One in the corner, hands up.
To which lender category do credit unions belong, and do they all belong to the same category?
The question at home is, to what lender category do credit unions belong, and do all credit unions belong to the same lender category? Nailed it. Thank you. Applause quickly, please. Steph, take us away.
So I would qualify them as A. I mean, they, in my opinion of credit unions, is they fill a cool space, which is like a B plus, A minus. They do have A rates more often than not, but they also have products and considerations that B lenders have that other lenders, A lenders don't. They, for a time, were exempt from the stress test. I don't know if that's the case anymore. So there definitely are times where it's a beneficial tool, but usually they cap out at a 25-year amortization, so it's not as effective.
Don, Chris?
No, I agree. They're primarily A lenders, especially the bigger credit unions, but they do sort of have this alt flavor to them. They, for their customers, they do some sort of quasi B lending at times that you won't see some of the bigger A lenders do, but the bulk of their business is A.
Yeah. They also have their own guidelines. They don't follow the bank's guidelines. They kind of have their own, depending on the type of credit union, and some are based on ethnicity and some are based on their different products that they offer.
Professions.
In terms of professions, and they'll have a certain, group like postal workers will have a credit union, and different types of industries. But yeah, the for the most part, they have the similar guidelines, but their amortizations are not as high, and they're very big on the more money you put down, the better the rate, right? So
it might be a good product if it's like, your primary residence, you don't aim for a large portfolio, and it definitely scratches an itch, but if in the scope of like an investment portfolio, they're not a tool that I personally use regularly with my clients.
How about other questions in the back?
In regards to the new Bill 109 and the affordable / so getting up to the quadplexes, triplexes, what tools do we need to have to best finance that type of investment property?
How am I going to repeat that? No love for Bobby today. With new regulations, according to Bill 109, right? What tools does an investor need in their toolbox to hit that triplex, fourplex, a larger residential income property? Did I hit it? Amazing. Who's tackling it?
Who wants to talk?
Go ahead.
I don't want to, but I will.
There you go.
No, just kidding. I think that the toolbox is sort of the same insofar as you want to have that baseline, right? Credit, income, like an application is going to be reviewed with the same qualifying details. Depending on the lender, exactly as Chris was saying, their appetite, their offsets, not all lenders are as competitive in that space. So in terms of a toolbox, I would probably recommend just being frank and honest and open with your broker. This is my goal. This is where I want to get to, and allow them to sort of roadmap how they'll look at your application and see the tools that you already have. And a broker with their salt will also coach you on the things that you don't have to get you there. So often I, might be a little biased, but your best tool is your broker.
Yeah. It's a lot of it has to do with progression. Like, where are you in your portfolio? What has got you to the point where you want to or be able to buy a triplex or a fiveplex, 10plex? Because the banks look at that, right? They want to know that you're able to manage multiple properties. You're able to make sure that you're paying your mortgages on time. And if you're looking to upsize, then the progression is, okay, we move into the fiveplex and 5+ doors, which has a completely different way of qualifying to purchase those types of properties. So in terms of the roadmap that we kind of put as a holistic view is, well, where are you today? Like I said, how do you get there in the next 5 years? And if you want to be able to get into that 10plex, it's not going to happen right off the hop. You would need to grow your portfolio a little bit, maybe offload some of those properties or put them into corps, and then go and purchase your 10plex or fiveplex.
Don, anything to
Yeah,
add?
just echo the points. They're spot on, but also just in the funding market for lenders, there's more money available for these types of properties now. The CMB allocations have grown. There's more third-party funders available for these kinds of projects. So banks, like we've seen them being very competitive lately on all products. So, but again, like Chris said, they do want to see someone in those types of properties who really has a portfolio view and assets and experience and capabilities. So, but the market's there, the mortgage market's there for those kinds of deals.
Everybody, I was given my 5 minutes heads up a couple minutes ago. I want to make sure any last question that we may have for the group before we let them get back to the mimosas that we've hidden in the kitchen. Please.
So how early we can qualify for the pre-construction condo project?
How early can we qualify for the pre-construction owner type products?
Are you talking when you're buying the property or when you're going into occupancy?
So I'm in the middle of that. So book it like 2 years back.
Yeah.
And now it's going to come this year. It's going to complete. But the builder is start asking again the commitment letter. So
Yeah.
when we go to the bank again, like before even we don't know the thing.
So more specifically, we're talking about in the lead up to your occupancy period, right? When they're going to ask for a requalification in some cases, we're seeing that a lot right now.
Mm-hmm.
And then moving towards registration after you've taken occupancy. You want to start there?
So what happens in that part of that process is the builders are coming back to make sure that you can actually qualify to purchase this property. More so for investors, because they want to make sure that they're in the position to buy, they can rent out those units, which is why they're asking for, again, another pre-approval. Some builders are coming back to us and saying they actually want a full approval. So what we're doing now within the group of RSD Canada is we're now getting the actual approvals done on occupancy. So what happens is it gives us enough time, one, to lock in the rate for 120 days. In the event that the builder was able to register the condo corp with the condo corp, we can then have that pre-approval or the approval ready to go. We're seeing now where builders are also coming to us 3 weeks in advance. We just got one last week on Thursday saying you need to close on March 5th. So we do it in advance on the occupancy, so that way we don't have to scrounge and scramble to get everyone in the process to do their job within that time frame. So on the occupancy date should be everyone's clue as to when you start the financing.
So when normally the bank gives for 120 days, right, the pre-approval.
Yeah.
The date is past than 120 days. Will the bank will honor the
So
commitment?
yeah, so what we try to do in that instance is we base it off of the amount of stories in the building. So if it's a 15-story building and you're on floor number 8, then we'll have a general idea between 8 and 15 how long it'll take for those units to be occupied, and then we'll kind of gauge it around, okay, your occupancy, we don't want to do it too early. If we do it early, we can lock in the rate to protect the rates from increasing. You'll always get the lowest discounted rate, prior to closing. But if the builder doesn't register within that 120 days, then we'd have to reflip out the deal, get another approval on it, and then be exposed to whatever the rates are at the time if they've increased. If they've decreased, then we're in the positive.
Steph or Don, anything to add?
No, I think that's pretty thorough.
I would probably just add to piggyback on that. The value also of chatting with your broker at occupancy is in part the rate. It's also to make sure we're not in for any surprises. So it's to reconfirm that you do in fact qualify. If you don't, what things can you do between now and registration to get yourself there? Or what debts do you need to pay down, or what have you? So there is 2 parts to touching base at occupancy. One is the rate hold, max is 120 days. We're getting BMO in the channel. I think they're 130 days, but ultimately the rate expires, right?
Mhm.
But what we really want to do is make sure that we're not going to have issues qualifying, period. And for your own sake, if you no longer qualify under A and you're flipping to a B lender, which is a great option, sometimes people need to sort of digest that difference. And, there's different rate and fee structures. So it gives you a chance to know what you're getting as opposed to just, at the final hour signing whatever you can get.
Oh. Yeah.
Okay. If the occupancy keeps getting flipped forward because they're not meeting their deadline, and you have to keep requalifying people because it expires, who pays for that time, effort, extra qualifications?
Great question.
Yeah.
And the answer is ultimately, I think the broker.
Yeah.
I joke with my friends a lot that a lot of my job is volunteering, but it's just kind of par for the course. We don't necessarily once the application's in the system, we don't have to put the same 2 hours into thorough combing over credit pulls, and it's not the same every time. Really, it's that first time we make sure T's are crossed, I's are dotted. Oh, it got pushed. You send me an email. I'll take a look. Yep, everything's still looking good. We haven't seen a huge spike in rates, or the product that I qualified you under still exists. Just little things like that. But yes, that would be us.
Yeah. The other way to gauge it, just to kind of piggyback on that, is the building has to be 97% complete and 97% occupied in order for the builder to transfer the deed over to the condo corp. So when you're in occupancy, depending again on what floor you're on, you can kind of get an idea of where they're at.
You 3 are amazing. I just want to say that once again. Please, everybody. Steph, Chris, and Dawn are all available through the REC Canada channels. Anybody that's been following us for long enough knows to simply reach out at info@reccanada.com. And Tyler will do all of the heavy lifting to make sure that you connect directly with each and every one of these people, dependent upon your desire. We're going to let them go, okay? And I'm going to stick around and really put on a show for the next 3 or 4 hours. Is everybody good to stick around that long? Wonderful. Thank you so much once again, everybody. Okay.
Thank you, guys.
And they're going to be here for more questions in the brunch room after we're finished in here. Okay. Thanks so much, guys. Thank you. Yeah, you can go out wherever. Mimosas are through the back door, though. Amazing. Okay. I teased it a little bit earlier, and I want to be able to make sure that we had just enough time for you to take away as much value from brunch today as possible. This is the first one that Jazz and Simos have put me in charge of running. That's why it's so well organized. Just kidding. Okay. And on time. Thank you for that. Okay? But we really have a firm belief that we can help to empower investors in our markets and beyond, right? We are RC Canada for a reason. We stretch the entire country if needed. But that empowerment begins with education. Some of education happens to be the tools that we can deploy in order for you to see what we see on our end. So if everybody in the room just wanted to take a look back at that door, you see 3 of the most handsome gentlemen you'll ever see in your life. We've got Zach, Jesse, and Sumit, all well dressed. They all outdressed me today. Those are all 3 agents on our REC Canada team that are boots in the ground in the GTA at large. Okay, Zach lives in the East End. Jesse lives in the city, but does a ton of work in the Golden Horseshoe. Sumit, I believe you're in Brampton and you're all over Ontario. If I ask Sumit to go to Windsor right now, you won't even see him leave. He's just gone. Okay, but it's kind of besides the point, because what I had them do is work with a new tool that we want to be able to offer our REC insiders. So this is going to be a beta test. You're actually going to be the first to see it, and you're going to be able to take it away today. And that's a buy and hold pro forma that's the most robust that we've ever been able to put together with our inside team. So this is the collective knowledge of Jazz, Simeon, myself a bit as an investor. We're going to say about 100 years worth of experience into a tool that you're going to be able to take away today. Okay, and I'm going to get to that. But the real kicker to this is that I had Jesse, Sumit, and Zach all put together live deals in those pro formas so that you can see what we actually have available from a boots on the ground perspective in the GTA and beyond for you to be able to take away today. So there's a handful of things. You're going to get a pro forma, and I'm going to switch over to another microphone and show you on the screen in a moment. The next, though, is that if you were ready to act, right? Today, literally, Zach told me somebody canceled on a showing for one of the ones that you're going to be able to access at 2:30 today. If you wanted to go see a triplex, I believe, in the city of Toronto today, you could do that. Okay, right? But if you weren't ready, we also want to make sure that you know why potentially you're not ready. So the third thing that you're going to be able to take away today is a REAP. Does everybody with REC Canada know what a REAP is? If I was to ask, a real estate action plan. This is exactly where Tyler comes in as our portfolio manager with everybody at REC Canada, who's going to be able to sit down with you over a 30-minute, 45-minute period and really examine what you have going on, what you would like to be able to do, and sort of set a course, a literal action plan. So from us today, once again, I'm going to start to show you this in just a second, but you're going to be able to take away a pro forma for you to use on your properties currently and for things that you're seeing in the market. You can go away with a couple of live deals. I think there's as many as 4 that will come in an email when you drop your email into where I show you to in a moment. And last but not least, all right, the ability to understand where you're going and why. Because I might be a data guy in the back end of this thing. I love the organization that goes into a real estate portfolio. I love the numbers. I love all of those things. But if you don't know why you're doing this, right, you're dead in the water from the jump. So if you guys will just give me a second to move over here. Okay, we're going to flip over the screen and I'm going to start to show you some of these things, okay? So a chant, right? Bobby. No, I'm joking. Don't do that. Don't do that. This one here. Wonderful. I get to stand in the sun because it looks like a beautiful day out there. Is it? Good. Then we're not going to keep you very long. And I need to share the screen, right? So, Stephen. And here we go. This is one of the deals that Jesse brought to us over the last couple of days live. I believe this is a student rental, right, Jesse, in St. Catharines. This isn't your live pro forma, okay? This is a PDF version of what he was able to put together. So lots and lots of pretty looking things, right? Let's break it down for just a minute. Based on the inputs, and I need everybody to take this part of it away. Your outputs are only ever as good as your inputs. So the more information that we have, and this is actually where your power team, as our group earlier mentioned, can really help, especially the guys in the background right now, the Jessies, the Sumits, the Zachs of the world that work with REC Canada. I see Jennifer back there too. I should mention Jennifer Popo, an incredible agent in her own right, who is also very, very good at this. Okay? But outputs that you're going to see, things that investors are familiar with, your cash flow, your principal reduction, okay, your property price appreciation, and your total return on investment are all calculated through the sheet itself. It goes even deeper into giving you as many as 10-year run overview of where this property could go based on the outputs or inputs that you're giving it. everything from potential net cash flow to potential appreciation of the property, and even identifying at different points what your ROI perspective and equity holdings are, so that you know when to get in front of somebody like Don, Chris, or Steph to be able to access dollars if that's what you so choose to do in order to grow your portfolio even a little bit further. I mentioned the inputs and the quality of such. And what we've had these guys do, and all you actually have to do is go to a landing page that I'm going to provide you in a moment, okay, to see the live deals. But we've broken it down into something like 20 data points, all of which any savvy and investment focused realtor would be able to do for you, and that you can be taking reasonable guesses at in the market. Okay? Things like your purchase price. We've had the guys just enter listing prices. That doesn't mean that that's what it sells at. That doesn't mean that's what your purchase price is. But we're trying to be as conservative as possible when we put numbers in here. And if they're asking crazy numbers, we're just going to see how it works in the market. We also have the ability here to play around with whether or not you wanted to do a renovation. So a BRRRR or a flip to yourself strategy in some cases, and what that cost would be and how it affects your bottom line. That would be through this second portion here. And we've also got all of your lending information right there. So if you were talking with Don about what rate you could be using in order to acquire a property of this type, a product set, a duplex, triplex, you would have relevant information to be able to place into there. Moving farther down the sheet, as many as 8 bedrooms. I think it says 7 bedroom. I can't see from my angle. Is it 8 at this one, Jesse? This one's 8, right? 8 bedrooms or 8 units in some cases. Rents, based on what those could be as actual outputs, and the ability to add to, I'm looking at it right now, it says annual revenue growth, actual growth in your rents or any additional income that comes. The cell that's just above the revenue growth rate would be additional income. Think laundry, think paying for parking, things of that nature, so that you can put in total income sets. And in the bottom, total expense sets. Simeon actually had a huge hand in this, and Simeon is a commercial broker by trade. So you're going to see a lot of commercialized terms in there in the moment, but that's why this is a beta test. We would love feedback, good, bad, ugly feedback about what this is and how we can help to refine this into a better tool for you. So you're going to see payroll right there. And as much as I love my dear wife, Laura Lynn, hopefully watching at home live on YouTube, shout out Laura, okay? Right? I am not putting her on payroll. Fact. You're supposed to laugh at that part. She's not laughing about it. Okay? But we've got things in there that you can manipulate bit by bit. The instructions to take away from this as you go to download this, any colored cell is manipulatable. We've locked nothing in the moment. Okay? So don't worry about messing it up, because we've thought of that too. I'm going to send you to the landing page in just a minute. It's going to look like this. You can click either the REC logo or the here. Okay? And it's going to offer you to make a copy of this each and every time. So just keep landing back at that same landing page, just bookmark it so you always have access to this. And if you feel like you've messed it up or inserted something into the wrong cell, don't worry about it. You haven't messed with the master copy. You're taking a copy away for yourself to do on your property. And again, and again, and again. And the more feedback that we get from you, everybody, please, to info@reccanada.com. The more feedback that we get on this, the more we can refine it with the data points that you want to see and what those are. Does that all make sense? Amazing. So how easy can we make it? There's your landing page. For anybody at home that can't scan the computer quickly enough, okay, this is at reccanada.com/brunch REC, no spacing, brunch REC. I'm sorry that's complicated. I'm a very complicated man who didn't think to just make it brunch like a smart person would have. Okay? Take these things away. What you'll end up seeing on that landing page, and I think that I can flip over to a different screen. Can I change, Steven? Yeah, can you? I'm going to exit out of here. I want to show the actual page itself. There we go. Can everybody see that? This might be difficult to see at home. Okay. But here's your landing page. If you scan that QR code, here's where you're going to land. And as I mentioned before, and just to wrap things up for everybody, okay, you can access your pro forma right there, clicking here or the REC Canada logo. If you enter your email address, you're going to receive an email almost immediately with the 4 properties that I know we have available today okay, that are listed in our market that could make a difference to you and your portfolio. That can happen now. Simply enter that. You're going to end up getting that email. You're going to see performance for each one of them. And if you click the little box underneath, you're actually going to connect with one of the 3 guys who put that performer together to help talk you through what that property is and how you can best access it. And if you're not ready for that, we know that too. Down below, you're going to see Tyler's most handsome face and a calendar that you're going to be able to book in a REAP with. If you haven't had a REAP over the last 90 days, book one. It's a difference maker for what your portfolio can and should be based on what your desires are. It is your literal real estate action plan so that we can get you out into the market in the most focused possible way. Does anybody have any questions about anything? Or are they just excited to play with our pro forma? I probably could do it on Power BI. We should talk out. Oh, there we go. We're going to talk about that. We got to start somewhere, right? I love it. Thank you so much for joining us at brunch today, everybody. Please don't go until you have all of your questions answered. For anybody at home that's watching right now, to my wife, I'm very sorry that you're not on payroll. First. Second, please, any questions, reach out, like I said, info@reccanada.com anytime, and you're going to connect with somebody directly on the team very, very quickly. Okay? Amazing. Thank you so much. We'll see you in the lunchroom.